Reservations.
I call the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your wisdom shone through, if a little slow. Mr. Chair, sorry.
I might take that call back, actually.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. That's right. That's right. I apologise that if there's any offence taken, I'm prepared to withdraw. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, because I know some people may think that my colleagues have strayed off track, but I don't want to. I want to stay in the part of the bill that we're discussing here, Mr. Chairman, and refer to a part here that I'm unclear of. So maybe the Minister, again, the Minister for Prison Rights, is in the chair there. If she could explain Clause 5, and it's around premiums from issue of rights to subscribe for shares. And it seems reasonably...
No, it wouldn't have premium.
Well, premiums. No, well, I'm not quite sure. But do you know what sprang to mind, and maybe the Select Committee chair or people could answer the questions, has this been changed to give more benefit to those people who can afford to buy Mighty River shares?
Well, that's a good question.
Because what we've had, of course, with the sell-off of state-owned enterprise shares, you've had premiums and incentives for so-called New Zealand investors. And I'm sure some of my colleagues here who are a little more knowledgeable in this area of taxation may be able to answer it, but I'd appreciate the Minister getting up and answering. The premiums from issue of rights to subscribe for shares. And if I can go here, a distribution by a company to a shareholder is not a dividend if the company issues to the shareholder the shareholder right to subscribe for or dispose of the company a share in the company at a given price, the shareholder price. The point being that we have a loyalty bonus share scheme, which is the way that John Key promoted the retention of ownership in New Zealand hands of the sell-off of half of our state-owned enterprises, starting with the electricity sector. Mr. Speaker, what was effectively a lie, and I will say it a lie because it's been an untruth, that these companies would be sold off to New Zealand investors. It is an untruth because they have not been, and I call it a lie if you like, because in fact of all the hype around the sell-off of Mighty River shares, I go back to the reality that there were 113,000 investors who took up the share offer, and I'm guessing that all of those people were then entitled to a loyalty bonus share scheme. Now that might on the face of it seem like a good deal for Kiwi mums and dad investors, because that's what we heard from the Prime Minister and all the idiots over there on the other side. We heard that this is an opportunity for mums and dads to go and buy shares in a company that they already owned. Well, let's look at what actually happened. Because of those 113,000 so-called Kiwi investors, that included trusts, companies and investment institutions. Hardly mum and dad investors, I would say to you. In fact, half of those shares went to a mere 13,000 investors, and 10%, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member Anne Tolley.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I've been listening to the member, sort of, for quite some time. I failed to see what the sale of state assets has to do with the bill in front of us, Mr. Chairman.
We are actually speaking to part one, but point of order, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Well, Mr. Speaker, like the Minister, I was also listening intently to a large number of these speeches, and they have been wide-ranging, covering all sorts of issues, and you quite rightly have used your discretion not to pull people up. So it may be that truth hurts, but she can't have it both ways.
Order. The member was doing very well, but can I ask the member to continue in the vein of his speech? Relevancy is my discretion. Please.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I do appreciate your wisdom, as I said at the start. Mr. Chairman, can I say that if the Minister's not on top of her game, if she doesn't know what we're debating here, go to page 16 of the bill and then go and get up and explain to me whether the bonus offer loyalty scheme for the sale of the state-owned enterprises will apply to Clause 5, Section 3. That is, a distribution by a company to a shareholder is not a dividend if the company issues to the shareholder a right, that's the shareholder right, to subscribe for or dispose of a share in the company at a given price. So what are the rights attributed to the loyalty bonus share scheme shares offered to the so-called Kiwis, Mr. Chairman?
I call the honourable member to focus on part one.
Absolutely. Well, I read it out, Mr. Chairman. I read it. I can read it out again if you like, because the questions I ask about the loyalty bonus share scheme in relation to the sell-off and the sell-down of our state-owned enterprises, Mr. Speaker, apply to this taxation bill here. I would like some answers, because the lie that we are actually referring to is that this company would be sold to Kiwis, they would be offered a bonus scheme, a loyalty share offer, and I'm wondering whether this legislation in any way undermines the benefit that will come with that loyalty bonus share scheme, Mr. Speaker. It is a relevant question, and I think there have been a whole lot of Kiwis who currently own the state-owned enterprise who have been conned. They thought that actually the 49% might go to Kiwis. The reality is quite different, Mr. Speaker. And the question will be, do these institutional investors have the right to the loyalty bonus share scheme, and do they have the right to the provisions, or are they affected by the provisions in this piece of legislation? Mr. Speaker, Meridian Energy, we are told, is going to be next on the block. So it's only fair that we clarify for mum and dad investors, that's to use the quote of the Prime Minister, Mr. Bennett, who's up there trying to sell it to all the people in Hamilton. Mr. Speaker, we need to clarify for them what they might get, because we've seen a slide in the share price. In fact, many of those mum and dad investors have lost money at this point in time. I don't know what the share price is today. Maybe someone can let me know. Are they still on the negative side? Less than 250. So indeed, the promise by all the share traders, by the Minister, by in fact the trader who's the Prime Minister, you can't believe most of what a trader will tell you, because they're basically a glorified salesperson who clips the ticket, on the share price or the derivative price going up and down. It's exactly what John Key's doing, and he's clipping the ticket. And I have to say, it's a really sad thing to admit that, it's a popularity ticket. He's clipping it. Meanwhile, the dividends are going down for most New Zealanders across the board. It's harder for them to live. They are working longer hours, Mr. Speaker, and the share trader clips the ticket on the way up and down. Mr. Speaker, I come back to the bill, as I've not strayed too far from it. Mr. Speaker, the other danger in relation to the sell-off of our state-owned enterprises and the need for us to clarify in this legislation how the distributions, how the loyalty bonus share schemes will work for people, so that the Kiwis who can afford to, and I'd have to say that 10% of the shares of Mighty River Power went to 400 people. That's an average of $250,000 investment. Is that your average mum and dad? I doubt it. I doubt it. So, Mr. Speaker, come back to the reality and the hype around the next sale, that is of Meridian. We need to know what might happen to any bonus scheme that will be offered there. I'd suggest that the Prime Minister is going to have to offer a sweeter deal, or another deal, or some other kind of twisted arrangement that looks good on the face of it, but as many of the investors, the mum and dads who have invested in Mighty River Power, will be finding it's not all beer and skittles. And in fact, the share price has gone down. I'm not sure whether they'll get their dividend. And so it's not been terribly positive for anyone, really, other than the Minister of Finance who's got a bit more money to play with, who's spending it about 10 times over. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I'll come back to the bill here and say that can the Minister hop up and answer the questions as to whether the distribution through a loyalty bonus share scheme will be affected by this piece of legislation. I have many things to comment on the livestock part of this legislation, but I'll just start in this first part of the legislation. And I know the Minister, he's a smart Minister, he says so all the time. And can he get up and answer these questions? Because that's the least an up-and-coming knowledgeable Minister can do in this House this afternoon.
Chair. I call the Honourable Member Brendan Horan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to participate